Hey everybody, John Gucci Foley. We're welcome back to the High Performance Zone. Today I got my old boss on the Blue Angels. This is an epic episode. Greg Wooldridge, I call him boss. He was the flight leader of the Blue Angels. We talk about not only what it was like to fly together, but we get deep. We get into being a cheesehead. That's when you screw things up. We don't talk about being a dead ant. These are some of the inside things on the Blue Angels. We also go into our stories about Moscow, and you'll love about, boss, do you remember that? And he's going, Gucci, do you remember this? And we talk about the impact of this, and most importantly, the leadership that we all can take away. So this is an epic podcast, one of my favorites, and I'm just honored to bring to you Greg Wooldridge, the only three-time leader of the Blue Angels and my boss. Here we go. Hey, boss, you remember the culture of the Blue Angels? We talk about what that stood for and that metaphor of the gold helmet with the gold visor. What did that helmet mean to you?
Yeah. It was iconic. I mean, it was like something you could look at and see that this was something different and special. Many teams, many corporations have something that's iconic to them, right? It could be a label, it could be the way they identify themselves. But to the Blues, it was a gold helmet. Nobody else in the world wears a gold helmet with a gold visor, right? And so that's what it meant to me as a symbol of excellence and the uniqueness. Yeah.
Well, I remember having the honor, right, after being selected, where you get your helmet, right, and you get to put it on for the first time. And I mean, it was like, I can't believe I get to do this. I got an idea, boss. Let's grab our helmets and let's put our helmets on one more time. What do you say?
All right. Sounds good.
Okay, you ready? Here we go.
All
right. And now, when you're look at yours is tighter than mine. You got it fitting good. Let's do visor down. Holy cow.
There we go.
I'm going to actually button my chin strap. Yeah, you are too. Okay.
There we go.
Boss, I feel like we're back. We're back in the jet again. I mean, look at my backdrop, but this is awesome, boss.
Yeah. This is what I'm all about. This is my original helmet, my original bucket.
Wow. Yeah, mine's beat up. You're keeping it in much better shape. I mean,
well, I had a chance to go through Pensacola about 2 winters ago. I had it with me, and I got the para-riggers, wonderful young folks, Blue Angels. I said, look, I got my old helmet here. Is there anything you could do to spruce it up? Wow. Boss, we got you covered. They put a new visor in and tightened it up, and it was cool.
That's great. I need to do that. Mine's a little shaky right now, but
helmet's off now. Put it on the canopy rail, and
so here's the safety. I didn't have my chin strap up, but yeah, remember we would hold it up.
Ready?
Yep.
2. Yeah. All in formation. Yeah.
That's cool, boss. Hey, boss, I was thinking, first off, there's so many things for this podcast we're going to go into with our guests, our backgrounds. And I thought that, and dive into some of your background too, but I thought we would start right with the Blue Angels. You and I had one of the most incredible experiences of our lives, and we happened to be able to share that together. That was 1991. I remember when you came in as the commanding officer of the Blue Angels. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. I just got goosebumps thinking about it. What was it? What do you remember? What was your beginning with the Blue Angels?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I remember, we haven't talked about this, but it struck me as we were discussing some other things. That one of the things that happened was I arrived at the airport. Right, I flew in on a commercial flight. I get there, and all you guys are in the airport ready to greet me or greeting me and saying hello. And somebody said a special phrase, and all you guys jumped on the floor with the arms and hands up in the air. It was called dead ant. It was something we used to do all the time. And I'm standing there going, well, that's one heck of a greeting, and apparently what it meant was, because I didn't jump down there, I owed everybody around. So that was kind of fun. Well, the thing I remember, I guess, most impactfully about.
Hey, boss, real quick. I don't want to interrupt you, but I do. That dead ant. I remember that the first time I saw that, it was like, it was weird, right? And but you ended up paying around the drinks. We all got on our backs. But as a commanding officer, I remember many times you would be giving a talk, would be in front of the air show, and someone would pull that stunt What did that feel like when you were, really trying to be the commanding officer?
It showed, I would just flop down like everybody
Yes.
else, right? And it just showed it, you got to be having fun when you're doing these high impact, very tough flight maneuvers and the things that are in a danger zone of their own. You still have to have a sense of humor, even to the extreme of being maybe a little ridiculous, but falling down and just making everybody see I was just like anybody else, right? And it was part of the whole thing about coming to the airport like that. And like you said, having somebody yell it out was part of team building, right? Yes. And everybody participated in that, a little competitive within the team, but it was part of building that confidence with each other. So it was good.
And that camaraderie. Okay. And you were amazing. Yeah. But tell me, what was your first experience like?
Yeah,
let's go.
Yeah. So I'm sitting in the ready room there after I'd been selected. I show up to the team and I'm called the mini boss at the time, because I'm not the boss yet. I haven't taken on that role. And the boss comes to me and says, "Hey, Minnie, you want to go flying today?" And I said, "Oh, heck yeah, this is great. I'm all for this." He said, "Okay, we got to practice. And we're going to put you in the back seat of a 2-seater. We got some 2-seaters. You're going to be in the back seat of one of the solo pilots." And I don't remember who it was. Gooch, I don't think it was you. It would have been Spurt.
No, it would have been Spurt.
Okay. Yeah. So they said, I said, "Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go, boss." We get out the end of the runway and Spurt does something crazy like leaving the landing gear down and does a roll on takeoff. I'm going, whoa, is that cool? It's cooler inside the airplane than it was out. I mean, obviously the visual effects from outside are cool. And we get out there and fly around for a little while. And Spurt says, hey, Manny, you ready? I'm going to pull some G's here. I got a high performance turn coming up. You ready for that? I said, "Oh yeah." And I'm thinking, okay, I've been in the fleet. I know I've flown F-18s for blah, blah, blah. He puts the thing in a turn. I'm watching the G meter and I'm watching the G's build up 5, 6, 6.5. I'm going, oh man, I didn't see 7. Knocked me out. I'm out. And he rolls out. "How you doing, Manny?" "Oh yeah, I'm okay. I'm doing okay." And about 3 minutes later, he said, "Hey, Manny, we got another high performance turn here. Another maneuver. Now you ready for this?" And I go, "Yeah, I think I am." No, I didn't say I think I am. I said, yeah. So he puts it in, same thing, 5, 6, 6.5. I didn't see anything after that. Donk, I'm out again. I'm, sleeping more on the flight than I am awake. And he rolls it out and says, "How you doing, Minnie?" I said, yeah. I'm hanging in there. And I get back from that. I go, wow, am I going to have to be able to handle this kind of stuff? And this flying, this is so precision, so precise. I've never seen anything like this before. And I'm thinking, maybe I need to call the guy that sent me the orders to come here and say, "You better give this job to somebody else, because I'm not sure I can do it." But what then you look at it and you go, all right, look at these guys that came before you. They probably had something like this happen in the introduction to the Blues that made them question whether this is something they could even accomplish, even do. Yeah. And I thought, Wooldridge, you're standing on the shoulders of giants here. These the guys that came before you, and you can do this. You're just going to have to go with the flow here, and you'll figure it out. And so I did, and it came around. But that was my
boss. I don't remember that. I didn't remember you flew with the solos first as your introduction ride. I know for me it was with the slot pilot, but I had a similar experience. It wasn't the G-forces. It was just how close and precise everybody is. I remember on take, again, so excited. We got selected, right? I mean, it's just a dream come true, right? And I remember taxiing out to the runway, and it's different than when you're watching, right? You're in the cockpit, you can feel it. I remember the little hairs standing up. And then what blew me away was we taxied out, right? And this is in 1990. So the year before you got there, right? I had just been selected. And we taxi out and I'm in the slot, but 4 jets on the runway. And you did this, all the time as the leader, right? And the wings are actually close to being overlapped. And I'm going, okay, this is going to be interesting. And then when they took off and I'll never forget, 4 slides under number 3, right? Or number 2, actually, slides under number 2. And then we tuck in underneath those afterburners. And, the thing's shaking, the boss's airplane, like right here, this picture I got, right? The boss is, you're right in front, and they go straight up. And I'll never forget the same thought, boss. I was like, holy crap, how am I going to do this?
Yeah. How do you get to this level of performance? What's the secret? How do we trust each other that much? It was just phenomenal. I mean, just an interesting start to what became probably the most impactful 2 years, and then 3 years, and then 4 years when I got.
Yeah, you came back.
Came back
for
twice.
Everybody knows here, you're the only 3-time leader of the Blue Angels. They asked you back twice, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, that was great. That was great.
Hey, boss, real quick. Well, I want to let's unpack some of our experiences. Together. I mean, we were together for 2 years on the Blue Angels. As you were the leader, I was 6 and then 5, and it was amazing to be with you. But I was thinking the way the conversation already started. So we both were blown away with being selected, right? What was some of your recollections of the first time you actually were in the briefing room or the debriefing room? And then let's talk about how we built the camaraderie and we built the trust on the team, going out to El Centro, all these kinds of things. But, as you reflect back, what was it for you? What was that initial reaction?
Well, again, it was how hard it was.
Yeah.
How difficult it was to learn to do this stuff and memorize checkpoints and then memorize sequences.
Yep.
And then using the cadence and the verbiage that we're going to hear in flight. That was challenging, very hard, very, very hard. And knowing that I had to develop the confidence, like when I said coming left, okay, and on the K and K, people were turning into me when I wasn't turning, anticipating that I would turn, right? And that kind of, but the difficulty, the seriousness of it really struck me. It was, it's not like you had a lot of room to make a mistake. In the fleet, you do some stuff and you can adjust and make big corrections, right? When you're flying with the Blue Angels, all your corrections are very small and they're happening all the time. But if you have something that goes awry, it's tough. So it was very, very challenging for me at first, but I loved the building of the team, the camaraderie, again, I'll say it again, trust. That comes up so much when I talk about what we did there and what the team still continues to do. Yeah,
I think I'm with you, boss. Those are such powerful things. I just remember back to winter training. So we're in El Centro. This is 1991, right? So you had been selected. We'll go back to the selection process because I want everybody to understand how the boss of the Blue Angels, the commanding officer of the Blue Angels, is selected. But we're in El Centro. And here's a story. I don't know if I ever told you this, so we're going to be open and honest on here. But I remember you were talking about learning the sequence, right? And someone actually at an event I was just at last week actually asked one of these questions, and they said, "Do you have to memorize the sequence, or do you have like a little checklist?" And I remember you telling us that you would sit in the tub and memorize the sequence. Tell me about that.
That's top secret. I charge consulting fees for that little technique, right?
I use that technique now, boss, because of you. I now, before my speeches, as best I can, I'll sit in the tub and go over the storyboard. But tell me about your technique. How'd you do this?
And to that point, Gooch, a lot of times I've gone to an event, I've gone to a hotel, and the hotels have stopped putting tubs in the rooms.
I know. Don't you hate that? Or they're too short. Yeah, they give the little ones. It's like, come on.
Yeah, the shower with the little sill in there. I've actually plugged the drain and tried to make it a little bit of a tub. No. Anyway, the deal was, how do you, you're in a room, you're in the house, they're in the home, somebody's running through, the dog's out there, whatever. And, and you think you're focusing, you think you're concentrating. And then you start looking around, there goes a neat bird by the window, and you lose it. So my technique was, when I finally, with the Blues, I decided I got to find a way to do this. So I would go get in the bathtub, get whatever water I needed because it was going to be a long haul. Nice hot water, sit in there, lights blaring, but the door closed, no noise, except I would let the water trickle. And people would say, wasn't that a distraction? I said, no, it was kind of like white noise, right? And it kept everything else away.
Interesting.
And I would sit there and just go through, look at my picture, the overview of the show site, where I was going to be, and go through the cadence, go through the sequence, trying to get it over and over again, because, as you know, every show site was different as well. Yeah. And so there was a challenge of that, what am I looking for? What am I seeing as I'm talking? And when do I do my pull up for the roll or whatever, and where's that checkpoint? But I could do it in the tub. So it was weird. People look at me and they go, huh? Are you right in the head? I said, no, this is a great technique.
That's what I love. And, we get the privilege to share a lot of these techniques with people now. And I love the openness and the honesty. Who would think that the commanding officer of the Blue Angels would use a bathtub to get, prepared. And I use it now too. The other thing that blows me away, and Rob Stone, our good friend who produced the Around the World Speed of Sound, we have footage of you actually articulating that cadence, right? And I think we use the loop break. No, we actually use the line abreast loop, right? Where you start to talk people, you're talking us, the other pilots, the wingmans, through the maneuver. And I'll tell you, it blows people away, boss. You know that when you play that, they always ask me, they go, was that guy always that calm? I mean, you had such a command presence on the radio, and each boss has their own technique and style, but yours was amazing. Let's practice one. Okay. I want you to take me. You still remember? You want to take me through the loop break, anything, a loop, a roll? You tell me.
I'll do a roll.
Okay, let's do it.
So the key was, and what Rob did in Round the World Speed of Sound, as you started to mention, Gooch, was he transitioned from having us on film in the briefing room, me talking, and right into flight in my radio voice. And it was exactly the same as how I would brief it. So it's behind the crowd, setting up the diamond roll. Ease in the pull. Roll.
Awesome. I'm going to visualize this. I'm flying with you right now. Let's go.
We'll call it the delta roll. Okay. Ease in the pull. Rolling out the delta roll. A little pull. Up we go. Okay. A little pull. Coming left. We're in front of the crowd, setting up the Delta 360. No. Anyway.
Yeah. No, that was cool.
That wasn't the sequence, but it's like that. And
yeah,
watching you guys, in the brief, watching you close your eyes and envision what you're going to do and move your hands, throttle and stick. It was cool.
I remember, boss, that the first time I sat in on a Blue Angel brief, I was an applicant, and how we, for everybody else, we allow applicants to come into the brief, but not the debrief. The debrief is sacred, right? And I remember sitting on my first Blue Angel brief, and the first thing I want to do is not screw up, right? Just don't do anything stupid, right? Which is hard for me because I do that a lot. But
Cheesehead.
Cheesehead, that's right. I wore the Cheeseheads a lot. Tell everybody, what was the Cheesehead and how did we give that out?
After we came back from a weekend somewhere, doing air shows, 3 or 4 air shows, and then transit back, get back to Pensacola Sunday night, Monday off, or for most of us doing paperwork, right, Gooch? And then Tuesday, have a planning meeting for the next week. But in that planning meeting, we would revisit the last show site. Debrief everything, right? Yeah. And then one of the topics would be, okay, who's got a cheesehead story? And a cheesehead, it was, somebody got it in Wisconsin, it's that triangular chunk of cheese with a place to put it on your head.
You see them in Green Bay Packers football games, right? Some people in the crowd.
Yeah. Right? Oh yeah, you'll still see that. That's right. But it was a fun way to humiliate somebody a little bit, Hoops parked his rent-a-car, in a no parking zone, and the cops hauled it away, blah, blah, blah. And I think, or something even more colorful than that, which we won't try to go into.
Well, wait a minute, boss. We can be honest here, okay? It wasn't Hoops. It was Thumper and I, okay? And we got our car towed, okay? And that was in Tampa Bay, but it was, I think, a week either before or a week after, we actually totaled one of the rental cars.
Yeah, you rolled it on an off-ramp or something.
Well, we actually didn't completely roll it. It was, we went, down an embankment, and we had, it was interesting, but yeah, so we could be honest, it wasn't Hoops, it was Gucci.
Yeah, that's a debrief. That's good. It was. And then you'd wear that cheesehead through the rest of the meeting. It could be another hour, and then you got to take it off. But it was it was fun.
I'm glad you reminded me of that. It's funny. I had actually forgotten, but the minute you mentioned Cheesehead, I also had forgotten the dead bug, a dead ant, right? That's so cool that you let's, this is so much fun because you're bringing up really cool memories for me. Hey, I know we got to fly together, and I just want to say, and this is from the bottom of my heart, that you as a leader of the Blue Angels, there's a reason that you created that trust on the team so well. Number one was your aviation skills. To this day, you're the smoothest lead I've ever had a chance to fly off of. And it's not just me, everybody says that. I think that's one of the reasons that you were brought back 3 times, because of not only your aviation skills, but maybe more importantly, the leadership skills that you brought to this team. We talk about leadership all the time. What are some of those leadership skills that you found were, let's say, unique or different in the Blue Angels, and which ones are similar, translate to anywhere?
Well, different from the rest of the military, and probably more corporate than military, was the fact that I was more of an equal than I was an authoritarian, saying, this is what we've got to do, this is the way we're going to do it, without taking input, right? So much as just you relying on your experience, and that's where you're going to get your reputation or build your success, if you thought, right? You get to the Blue Angels and it's much more democratic. And we talk about, we get inputs and we're transparent. And of course, the legendary debrief, which we can talk about, that's probably, as our friend Wizard used to say, that's a secret sauce right there of a corporate and any kind of success as a team is the debrief. And as we describe it, a glad to be here debrief. So those are things, as I came in changes to my leadership style. I mean, I'd commanded an F-18 squadron on a ship overseas, home ported overseas. And that was challenging. And I'd seen a lot of stuff, and I had a degree of belief levels, as we talk about, right? And that was going to have to be adjusted greatly, especially when I blacked out. But I came with what were fairly decent skills, but when I saw what the Blues were doing, that's when I had to elevate not only my flying skills, but my ability to adapt to the way we operated in the Blues. And it wasn't magic at all. It was, it was foundational on trust and the culture that was established over, at that point, 45, 47, 48 years, now 75 years, but that culture was developed. So coming in and exercising leadership. Hey,
boss, real quick, what were you? I know you're on the Midway. Were you with the Golden Dragons? Were you the CO? No, who were you the CO?
Dam Busters.
The Dam Busters.
Yeah,
okay.
DFA 195. Yeah,
yes.
Great group of folks. Probably one of the things I found at the Blues that was essential to being a strong leader in a more democratic environment was that servant leadership, where you are actually giving of yourself rather than asking of others, giving more of yourself to bring them together and to give them an opportunity and to recognize what they do and key in on their strengths and if they had any weaknesses, to try to develop strength out of those. And so it was, and again, being transparent with the folks you worked with, that was something quite different and quite extraordinary, and made it the best form. And also learning as a leader that you ain't going to get it right every time, and you grow from mistakes and accept that fact. It's like the good things in life. The good things in life are even better when you've had some challenges and you've seen how hard stuff can be, and you've made mistakes, then when you realize a success in something, boy, it's sweet, and it makes you build on those successes. And I could go on and on about leadership, but you're always trying to find and develop in others leadership qualities so that someday they will step into your shoes and have the opportunity to do some great stuff.
Well, boss, I don't know if I've ever told you, in the bar yet, but you created that environment for all of us, and not just the pilots and the support officers, but the troops. That's one thing that really I still remember is how much you cared about the troops and how much you spent time with the troops. That was fairly unique, because it's easy to get stuck in the ivory tower, right?
Absolutely. Excellent point, Gooch. Just well stated. We get stuck in our own performance zone, if you will. I talk in my keynote about thunder and lightning. It was an old story that
tell the crowd about that story, because it's in the video, right? You mentioned that. What is that?
Right. Yeah. George Will used to say that in any event, or any team and the team event, how you do things, there's a thunder and the lightning. And what I always talked about was the blue airplanes being up in the sky, zorching around, everybody oohing and awing, and that was lightning, flash, flash, things are going off and people are going, wow, this is so spectacular. But without the thunder, without those, the show site, those other 40 men and women, or back home, those other 80 men or 90 men and women doing their jobs to the best of their ability, because they had ownership. They had ownership in the outcomes. And we made that clear to them. And that you talked about talking with the troops. And that was something I always emphasize, if without you folks, individually though, without you, we couldn't get this done. And to you goes the credit for this performance excellence that we get to demonstrate. So thank you. I'm gratified. And then the shaking hands and the glad to be here, and respect. But like we bring it back to respect as well. So yeah, I love talking to the troops. And I had somebody in the selection board that picked me to be the leader of the Blues come up and tell me after I'd been selected. He said, one of the things you did that so impressed us. Of course, I'd come from Japan off the Midway back to Corpus Christi to the selection process. And I saw the people I was competing with, the commanding officer, Top Gun, some other guys that were just shoe-ins for the job I wanted. I said, but anyway, there was a selection board in process for enlisted folks. So what we had was a place to get the information on that was what we called the comm center. So I was between interviews and selection boards. I was running over to the comm center to find out if any of my petty officers had got advanced to the higher grade, right? And they said, we saw that. We saw how you cared about your people, and we saw that as an important aspect of leading the Blue Angels. So, yeah, I say that humbly. I didn't do that as a show thing. I did that because I feel that way.
Well, and you just answered the question I was going to ask you about how does a commanding officer get picked on the Blue Angels? But actually, let's go a little bit deeper. How's a commanding officer get picked? And then let's dive in a little bit on how do we select the teammates around you. So go for it.
Commanding officer position, the boss position, is one that's not like the rest of the team where the team gets to pick that person. This person is picked by a board of, first of all, in our chain of command, there's an admiral, and then they would bring in some ex-Blue Angels, either flight leaders or wingmen, and some of the staff there on this Chief of Naval Air Training command for the board. But back further than that, about April timeframe of the selection year, they would come out with what we call back then a message. Now they're called emails, saying we've got this position open up. Who wants to apply? And here's what you have to have: 3,000 hours flight time on, carrier landings, that sort of thing. And I read that, I read that email, we'll call it. And I thought, this would be so terrific, but there's no way. I'd have no chance of this. Some of my junior officers, see, sometimes we learn from the people around us, right? So some of my junior officers in that ready room came up to me and said, Skipper, that's what they call the leader of the squadron. Skipper, you need to apply for this. You know, you'd be great. You'd have a ball, and we'd love to see you up there. And besides, you could get us some good tickets for the shows. They said, but they encouraged me, you know, and I learned from that. You never know until you try, until you put yourself out there, try. You know, if you don't think you get it and you want it, try anyway. So I tried. I got to be a finalist of about 6 of us, got called back to Corpus Christi. And again, the selection boards met. They ask you very tough questions about readiness to fly, one of those things, right? For inertia, what would you do if, and how do you handle this? How would you handle that? A lot from the guys that had been on the team. And, you know, you walk in and you walk out and you go, oh, I hope that's the answer they want. You don't say, I hope that's the answer they wanted to hear, but you say, I hope I expressed myself and how I would actually perform in that, under that situation.
Boss, what was one of those hard questions that you can share? What was one of them?
Well, it had to do with weather or physical readiness, how a person came into the brief, if it looked like they were ready, or you could tell if they were ready or not. And what would you do? Would you tell them, you know, hey, you better sit this one out? I remember one of the end of the season shows, Dave Stewart, known as Hoops, I think it was in the 93 team. He came in and you could see he was walking like this. And I say, you know, and because we flew so much together, we spent 300 days out of the year together. Yeah. We knew each other, but we knew each other's body language. You know, that told a whole story when you came up to him. So I said, hey, Hoops, what's going on? How you feeling? He said, oh, I'm good, boss. I'm good. I said, well, you look a little stiff. He said, yeah, working out the other day, I think I wrenched my back a little bit, but it's going to be okay. And I said, hey, Hoops, look it. We can fly. It was the end of season in front of our home crowd, you know, where you want to do the best. And you're thinking, I got to fly a 6-plane show. I said, you got to take care of that back. And because you don't want somebody wincing in pain in a very tight maneuver where they might let the pain overcome their flying skills. Right. I said, look, why don't you sit this one out and we'll fly a 5-plane show. It'll be beautiful. You know, don't worry about it. And I didn't have to talk him into it. I had to make, you know.
Wow. You know, but I don't know if people realize, I know you mentioned it, the complexity, you know, that could be true for any show site, but it being the end of season, you know, you mentioned that word, right? That's the last show that a team's gonna get to do as that team. Then, of course, 3 of the pilots are going to change, and a bunch of our support crew, a third of them. So that's a big deal, and that's actually, I think, why they asked you the question, right? It's easy when things are black and white, but that gray area really puts a lot of pressure. That's amazing. Hey, real quick, boss, though, call signs. Now I call you boss. Probably people are wondering, wait a minute, why does Gucci keep saying boss? Okay. And then you use the word skipper, which, and you said that's another call. And then you have your real call sign. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you the first 2, and then you get to do your real call sign. All right. But for everybody, the reason that I call the boss is number one, out of respect. It's a very a term of endearment and also respect for the commanding officer of the Blue Angels. So whoever is the commanding officer of the Blue Angels, they become boss. It doesn't matter what their call sign is beforehand. And then they're boss for the rest of their life. I mean, boss is always boss to me, right? Skipper is the same thing, but in a fleet squadron, if you're the commanding officer. But now, boss, skipper, let's talk about your real call sign.
Yeah, it was Spartacus. No, I wish. It was rug dance. People look at me, they go, what? What does that mean? You know, they start to go, oh, this doesn't sound so good, because they have no idea, right? And so now it's my email address, but because all my old shipmates know me as that. It had to do with probably being on the edge of the envelope a little too often, and maybe outside the envelope of what's allowed, and being called up in front of the commanding officer's desk. And the commanding officer's office probably was the only one in the area that was carpeted, right?
Yep.
And so you got the carpet, and you're standing in front of his desk, standing tall and shuffling your feet as you do when you're nervous, right? So that shuffling of the feet on the carpet got known as rug dance, and I did more than my share, and I'll have to say, I got to come back. I had so many second chances. It chokes me up. I mean, the opportunities I had, when I screwed things up, luckily, somebody saw potential in me and said, okay, look don't let it happen again. And we see that you can grow from this. Right. And then when you get in I'll digress a tad, when you get in a position of leadership and you can offer second chances. And I like to say, when you do offer, you got to make clear what the expectations are during that second opportunity to do better and do well. So yeah, rug dance. I didn't like it. And I like all call signs. If you don't like it, it sticks like Velcro. I mean, it's like glue, actually, not Velcro.
That's why Gucci, I still don't like it, and that's why it sticks, right?
I think you got that from on the blues. You lived on a sailboat.
Yeah.
Drove an Alfa Romeo.
Yeah.
You had a black book. Now I know it's in our iPhones, but you had a black book. In the old days, they called it a black book of all the names and addresses of a gal in every port, if you will. So and you were single, so we teased you about that, and that's stuck.
It was funny. It stuck. And the funny part is now Carol, my wife, she used to produce fashion shoots, and she actually produced Gucci. So it still sticks. It does. Yeah. Hey, I was thinking real quick. A couple of things. One is second chances. You mentioned that. I know that's a big message that you like to give when, you're out in front of the audiences on leadership and teamwork. Right. There was a couple of big stories on second chances for you. By the way, the rug dance, I didn't get the call sign, but I remember being in front of the commanding officer one or two times. One for coming into the break too fast, that typical stuff. But once I got called in and I had no idea, boss. I said, I haven't done anything wrong. What did I screw up this time? I couldn't think of it, but being called in a commanding officer was like not normal. And he calls me in, and it was Bud Orr. You remember Bud Orr?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He was the RAG CO at the time. And he calls me in, and I'm a student pilot in A7s. And I'm going, oh man, I just don't want to screw up. Just get me through this thing. And he goes, at that time, I wasn't even Gucci. I think I was Mo or something. I can't remember what they used to call me. And he says, this is off the record, but would you mind taking my daughter out? Yeah, I'm not kidding you. He asked me to an event, and I knew that was a no-win situation, right? You're never going to win that one. So I kindly, I think, bugged out. But yeah, I've done some rug dances before.
That is amazing.
Hey, give me your second chances though, or what are some that you remember?
Well, I go back to college, if I might. I entered college on academic probation. I mean, I just wasn't the sharpest tool in the toolkit, right? In a little school that you had a work study program. You had to work to earn your way to live on the base. And that made it even more special in my mind. And but I got in. My mom insisted that I go. The only kid in the family up to then that had ever gotten a chance to go to college, and she insisted. And I said, "Well, Mom, I don't have the grades, and we don't have the money." She said, "No, we'll find something." So we got in. I got in academic probation, and so I'm in there my first semester, and I'm like most first semester college students, right? Yeah. A little bit off track here and there. Got caught drinking in the dorm, which back in the day, as a 18 or 19-year-old, was not too cool of a thing to do. Got called into the dean's office the next morning. He said, "Look, I have a one-way ticket for you home." But he said, somebody came in and spoke up for you. And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, there's a couple of folks who think you've got the ability to make this work." And he gave me a second chance. And that was one of my big first second chances. Then I had them along the way. But wound up starting the second semester still on academic probation and on what we called social probation for the dorm violation. But I got through, made it through the.
Is that Animal House double probation? I think you were on double secret probation even, right?
That's it. Yeah, it was like that. But I made it anyway. But it was just because of Dean Gordon. They gave me a second chance, And then, so I had a bunch of those in the Navy when I got in.
Yeah. Tell me about the one on aircraft carrier landings.
Yeah. I got to the A7 squadron after being a flight instructor in the training command, which was another story, which was fun and tremendously rewarding. Got to the aircraft carrier, and we're doing carrier qualifications in the A7, and we're out on the USS Lexington, which was called the class 27 Charlie.
That was my first landing on a T2, and I thought it was so much of naval aviation history, right? That I thought how cool to land on wooden decks. I think they were still wooden decks.
Yeah. Back in the war, they had wooden decks, so if they got hit with a bomb, they had carpenters in the Navy then, and they would just come up and redo the deck with the wood they had stockpiled down below. So instead of having a metal deck, but anyway, then it got better. You got to see that, and they kept that ship around a long, long time. It's not like we're talking World War II. This is back. The Navy kept the Lexington a long, long time. So I failed. You had to get 10-day landings and 6 night landings, and the night landings were, I don't know how to describe them, even later in the fleet, because you didn't get to do enough of them. They demanded everything you had, although flying formation in the Blue Angels was even harder, I think. So I got them all done, and I thought, it's deep breath, big sigh. Yeah, I'm done. Called into the ready room. My instructor, the landing signal, the LSO, said, "Look, Greg, you got your numbers, but they weren't good enough." And I go, "Whoa, oh man, what happens now? Do I lose my wings? Do I, And he said, "But we're going to assign you with a different instructor." And it was Don Simmons. I'll never forget him. What a tremendous guy.
Yeah.
You remember him? Sickle?
Well, I know the name.
He actually was the kind of guy that later on he became a Blue Angel. Don Simmons. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
What year?
Look him up in the roster, but I'm pretty sure.
Let's look him up. Yeah.
Sickle was his call sign. But what he said to me was an adage that I've remembered all my life. He said, "Look, I know you can do this, and you know you can do this, but I want you to remember this one thing. You fly the airplane. Don't let it fly you." And I've taken that throughout my life, and it was a second chance, but I've taken that to everything I do, even before it evolves into a second chance. The first time, I want to get it right. So you know what you're doing. You've got experience. You've got the tools. You control the situation. Don't let it draw you off. Don't let the airplane drift left or right. Put it where you want it. Put the situation where you want it. You fly the airplane, don't let it fly you. So it applies to everything in life, not just flying airplanes.
Wow.
And that was another second chance. And there's been others along the way. Non-punitive letter of caution.
I never knew you got that.
Over with relatives in town in Pensacola, doing aerobatics over the house. It turned out to be over the airport traffic area at Pensacola.
Boss, then you got to do flybys legally, right? Later.
Flying between the Kuwait Tower and the Transamerica building in San Francisco legally. It doesn't get any better than that.
Hey, let's dive into some just cool Gucci boss stories on the Blues, because we've got our 75th anniversary coming up, the Blue Angels 75th reunion. You and I are going to be in Pensacola for that. I'm so looking forward to it. And I know we got a panel that we're going to do about the trip to Moscow. Let's dive into that real quick. What do you remember from Moscow? In fact, I'll start the question with, how did we even go there? How did all that come together?
Yeah, that's a good story, and I'll try to give you the Reader's Digest version, as they say, and keep it short. In 1991, it was being batted around that an American flight demonstration team would go to Moscow as part of a military-to-military exchange program. And they were keying in on the Thunderbirds, the Air Force team, which is a great team. Yeah. But I thought, we need to go. It'll be my second year as lead. So I went to the admirals. I said, "Look," different admirals said, "We really need the opportunity to do this, because this will really shine well for the Navy. It'll be great." And they said, "Oh, okay, yeah, sounds good." Blah blah blah. Never got an okay out of it. I finally went to John Capilupo at McDonnell Douglas, who was making the airplanes at the time. I said, "Yep, sir, we've got an opportunity to go around the world, not just Moscow, but a bunch of other European countries, and display your airplanes. Your McDonnell Douglas at that time built F-18s.
Yep.
And I said, and I bet there's some senators in the state, Missouri, that have people working for you that love that employment. They love the influx of business that brings. So I want a real back door, right?
Smart, boss. I never knew this. This
and he
is
said,
good.
I didn't know you were going to get a chance to do that. And I said, well, maybe you can talk to some of your senators, right? Because it had to go outside the military, because the military is controlled by people that wear a coat and tie, which is the way it's supposed to be, and it's fine. So I talked to him, and he said, let me take a look at that. And 2 weeks later, it's okay. Blues are selected to go to Moscow, right? So
really,
it's pretty fun story, And then getting Rob Stone to follow us over there for the documentary, that was another thing. But getting the clearance to do that, and then getting to work right away, sending some guys around to all those different countries, 8 different countries we're going to fly in to talk about it. And then other countries that we were surveying, like France and a couple other countries that were in the mix but didn't get selected. So that's how we got the.
That's cool. I remember, boss, we were in winter training, and when we sent Spurt and I think it was Dirk out on we used to call them winter visit tours on the US, but this was international. And I remember Czechoslovakia was on the list. They had a big air show, France, and but we ended up going. We started off in Sweden, right? Didn't we? Yeah, Sweden,
Stockholm, the south of Stockholm.
Yeah, and let's see what other stories. Then we'll get to Moscow, because you and I got some great stories there. But remember that trip going over the refueling? Do you remember how many times we had to plug? I don't remember exactly. Eight times.
8 times in a 7.5 hour flight, which I balked at because the Air Force had these requirements with their tanker aircraft that we always had to have enough fuel to go to a land base. I said, we don't need to do that. That's excessive. We get out there, we're flying along, we're wearing dry suits, and we've got an IV bag hanging up here with fluid in it, so we can take a sip every once in a while, right? Do you remember that? Got the doc to put some.
I actually, I don't remember the IV bag, but I remember having to pee. We had our piddle packs, right? But the idea of a dry suit, I don't know if people know what you mean. What do you mean by a dry suit? I mean, I know what you mean, but what is a dry suit?
Yeah, a dry suit is to help you survive in very cold water, very cold environments. It keeps the air inside, so the water never actually touches your skin. And it has a tight cuffs around the legs and hands, tight zipper, waterproof zipper, tight around the neck. And so it actually generates quite a bit of heat when you're not in the cold water, and you're going to perspire a lot. I have another side story on that. I won't go into it, but of the sweat coming out and shorting out the radio in one of my airplanes, one of my flights.
Well, I just remember how uncomfortable they were, right? That's the thing. I mean, and especially, we did some off the carriers, but around the Aleutians and stuff, but for 7.5 hours, that dry suit. And, but then I remember we landed in Sweden, right? And Tulinge, what was the airfield? Do you remember?
Well, I think they call it Tulinga. Yeah, Tulinga. That's how they said it in Swedish. Back to that other story there real quick. So I balked at in-flight refueling that many times, but then I looked down and saw icebergs, and I thought, I don't want to be down there trying to get onto an iceberg, after ejection.
I remember that too. I also remember they were piping music. This is back when the back radio, right? We had the Air Force tankers piping us music. So, because it was a pretty long flight, and we were loosed up. I think we have 2 KC-10s and 4 jets on each one, something like that.
Yeah, that was great. And you got to be pretty proficient at in-flight refueling on a trip like that. I mean, we were already from the fleet, but.
So what do you remember? Okay, let's go right either to Moscow or anything else on the trip. What stood out? Because this was an epic trip, never before been done, where the Blue Angels actually went to the old Eastern Bloc into Moscow, and has never been done since, right? I mean, this was really historic.
Yeah, we broke all kinds of boundaries there, or broke through holdbacks. It was great. The first stop was Tulinga in south of Stockholm. Next stop was Turku, Finland.
Oh, yeah.
And then we launched out of Finland to go to Moscow, right? So we get airborne. I think I've got the 2 spare jets with me. So we've got a total of 8, right? And we're going to go down. We're going to fly from Turku, Finland, down to Moscow. So I remember checking in, and the embassy knew all about this, the defense attachés, and it was all massaged and worked in with the Russian government. So and of our timing and all that stuff. So we launch out of Turku, and we check in with St. Petersburg Control. And I say, St. Petersburg Control, Blue Angel 1 at 10,000 meters. Now we started measuring in meters instead of feet. Another one of those things that was challenging about going overseas, where your altitude is reported in meters instead of feet. I said, Blue Angel 1, 10,000 meters. And St. Petersburg didn't say anything at first. I said, St. Petersburg, Blue Angel 1. He said, go ahead. Who are you?
Who are you?
Who are you? And I said, we are 8 U.S. Navy F-18 fighter jets. had to throw that in, right? And total silence. And finally they said, continue. And we just trucked on in and headed down to Moscow.
I remember that, boss. I remember the pause. It was one of those long pauses coming from St. Petersburg. And I don't know, we're chuckling. All of us wingmen on behind you are just chuckling, going, way to go, boss. That was awesome. And then you remember the next thing that happens is we start targeting, because we start to get intercepted, right? By the Su-27s and MiG-29s. I mean,
they're going to escort us into Moscow, into Kubinka, which was the major military air base south of Moscow. That's where we're going to stage. Yep. They were going to come up, their flight demonstration team, the Red Knights, the Russian Knights, actually not red, but Russian Knights, were going to come up, get on the outside of us, and escort us down into the field, right? Yeah. And we heard them out there just yakking. And Russian, they don't ever seem to talk; they seem to yell a lot. Right. Rah, 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 rah. You hear the airplane, and I'm going, okay, Gooch, you take the guy at 45 miles on the left side at 10,000 feet. Boss got him locked up because we had the radars, the weapons system radars still in the airplanes. No weapons, obviously, but we had them all targeted. We had them all identified long before they found us, and that was an interesting thing too.
That was cool. And then I remember, because it was fun, to feel like you're back in the tactical world. But then I remember them joining up, right? And we had briefed it, but still. I mean, I remember looking out over my left wing and seeing this Su-27, who tucked it in pretty good, not as tight as us, and then a MiG-29 on his wing. And then on the other side, that, and I just remember being in awe, and going, how cool is this? I kept looking over. Finally, Thumper came up on the back radio and said, Gucci, stop looking over there, fly formation.
Well, but 2 years earlier, we were ardent enemies, essentially. I mean, use that term kind of loosely, but then with the fall of the Berlin Wall and opening everything up, and that was part of the reason why we were there, just to show camaraderie or the ability to share with each other. So that was cool.
Remember the flying into the break, right? So, and we have this on film now, right? Rob does, and it's us and the Russians on our wings, and they peeled off. I wasn't sure how they were going to peel off, but they did a pretty good job up and out. They got out of our way. We landed. I remember my first reaction was, it was a big runway, right? Remember how wide it was? Yeah. And I remember two things though, that first off, the center line looked like they had just repainted it. And it was a little crooked. All right. And I'm going, that's interesting. And then remember we touched down, and all of a sudden the landing gear, was thump, thump, thump. I was like, what's going on here? And they had these huge expansion cracks in the runway because of the cold weather, right? But that's what I remember. And then I remember landing and getting out, and you had a ceremony. We had a ceremony right there on the tarmac. Tell me about your experience on that.
Oh, well, first of all, walking back from the airplanes in formation as pilots, in a line of across, as we did, and having, they went all out. They repainted the center line, like you said, squiggly. Okay. And then they also had just retard all these blocks of concrete. I guess they must be affected by permafrost or something. They just retard. So we're walking back, and our shoes are sticking in the tar. And had we been grading ourselves as we always do, even on the walk back, we'd have said, well, that was pretty raggedy looking. But it was anyway, we get back there, and They've got a band playing. They've got ladies and men in traditional Russian garb. And they had the salt and the bread, which was a ceremony where they would give you, and they had all the children, the grade school children.
Yeah.
And I heard them say, and they'd all been practicing this English phrase, "Welcome to Russia," or Moscow. "Welcome to Russia, Blue Angels."
That was it.
That was really.
It melted my heart. I remember from my perspective, and I know this is cool because we're practicing on what we're going to do in front of the team, right? Here later on. I remember from my perspective, is initially it was all, it's pretty much pomp and circumstance. I mean, military, we're marching, they marched by, saluting. You did the breaking of the bread. And I just remember then what struck me was I remember the Russian band playing our national anthem, right? And the Olympics, by the way, are today, right? And I just remember that while it was not the best rendition as far as technically, it was the best I've ever heard because it was coming from them. And then when those kids, they just swarmed us. And we have so many pictures of you holding little girl or me with kids in our arms and the joy. And I thought to myself, the world has changed. Yeah. We're all more similar than we are dissimilar. This is so incredible. I think we need to go back to Moscow, boss, you and I or the team and do it again because we changed the world back then.
Yeah. And I would love to meet up with some of their pilots. Their flight leader, ironically, his name was Vladimir, not the same one that we are familiar with now, but Vladimir, and we became good friends. You became good friends with your compatriot, your solo kind of a matchup equal there on their team.
Yeah.
We got to be really good friends.
Do you remember talk about real quick the exchange flights? We got films of this, of that. What was your recollection of it?
Just how incredibly powerful the Su-27 Sukhoi was. It was the most powerful airplane I'd ever flown in, and how beautifully it handled. Their aerodynamic engineers and creators were terrific. And then trying to do something to impress Vladimir in my backseat. But I like your story better.
Well, we both got to, as you say, show him some stuff, right? And I remember the you pilot, me pilot, we got to do maneuvers. I also remember I initially, boss, I don't know if you remember this, I didn't get an Su-27 or a MiG-29. It kind of turned into just everybody just jumping in airplanes. And I remember after I had flown one of the guys in my back seat, somebody came up and they said, "Let's go flying." So I'm thinking, yeah, of course. But he walks me over to a frog foot. I mean, you remember that? Yeah, you're laughing forever. That was like an Su-25, not 27. And I'm talking an old like A7 beat up airplane.
Almost a straight wing airplane. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, what? But I didn't know what to say. So I did it. And fortunately, I got an Su-27 ride a couple of days later with the demo that just happened at a party we were having. Right. But I just remember, that, we had fun. I know I knocked the guy out in my back seat. I know you guys had some fun too. But overall, it was just the deep respect and the camaraderie that we built. I also remember them changing the game plan on us. Remember when we had to fly over Moscow? What was your recollection of that story?
Well, I remember it had all been apparently planned out, but wasn't really. And I heard the Russian general, and I think in their control tower and their place where they had all the meeting rooms and stuff like that, they had one telephone.
Yeah, I remember that. Remember, it was black and it was the old hard line. And we were in the briefing room and you have to go out to it. But go ahead, keep talking. This is good.
Well, the general was a great guy. Their general, who was our liaison, if you will. I hear him in there yelling on the phone. Again, they yell a lot, yelling on the phone about this and that. I had no idea it was in Russian, right? But he's yelling at somebody in Moscow. And he came back and said, "Look, we tried, but we can't get the airspace." And from there, I'm a little bit fuzzy. You've told the story of you and I drawing out a modified air show.
Well, you remember, here's my recollection. Of course, it's only my recollection. We'll see how everybody else remembers this trip, right? That's going to be fun to get, all of us to remember stuff. But I do remember that same guy yelling. And, as the ops officer, I was your ops officer. That was my job to make sure that we had the airspace and we had all that stuff. And we were, quote, given the airspace. And then if you remember, they had a Cessna landed in the Kremlin a couple of months or a month or a couple of weeks before we got there.
On a street or something, right? In downtown.
Yeah. I think Red Square itself. I think he landed in Red Square. But the point was it embarrassed, and they created a no-fly zone, just like we have now over a lot of places in the U.S., right? They created that no-fly zone around the Beltway. And it just so happened that the center point was on that field, and the Beltway actually took away about half our airspace, right? The area behind the crowd. And, and you and I know, but for everybody else, we have certain maneuvers where there's setups, boss, you talked about your checkpoints and all that kind of stuff. And we needed that airspace. And so that was the argument over, can you get it back? And I remember that guy yelling, and I'm thinking, oh, this guy's on our side. This is great. And then it turns out the connection was so bad that, I got a call on that same phone day later, and I'm like, oh, you can't hear anybody. But I do remember we did the air show anyhow. And I remember going into it, we had to make a decision because we did have to change some of the setups or the sequence, really. We didn't change the maneuvers. We just changed the sequence. And I remember you and I saying, well, okay, here's what we can do. It's a head on because there was a remote show site. And you're saying, okay, I'll start with the diamond roll, and I said, okay, well, boss, we'll do the knife edge, and then we'll, do the fan brake. And then I said, okay, well, we can do the Fortis. But I remember that it was not normal for us, right, to change the sequence. What do you remember about all that?
My memory is foggy on that, to be totally honest with you. I'm surprised we got it done. I don't even remember what the center point was there. It must have been and I don't think we got to go out and do any survey flights.
No, remember, we couldn't circle. So actually I took a helicopter out there, Thumper and I, and I'm actually, this is where I can't wait to get with our teammates and find out what really happened, right? But I remember taking a helo out there and having to do circling, just walking along the ground. But I think you guys, did you get to circle or not? None of us get to circle.
I don't think we do. We have to ask Irish and Dino, I think, and Larry Packer was the right wing. Yeah.
No, that's cool. Well, that was amazing, amazing trip. I know I can't wait to unpack even more of those stories together. I also remember outside of Moscow, after Moscow, remember we did some other flights. Okay. We flew with the Italians in.
In Sicily, I think what's the name of the base there? U.S. base.
Rhoda? No, that's Spain. Sigonella. Was it Sigonella?
Sigonella. Yeah. Sigonella. Italy. Yeah.
Yeah, right there on the boot, right? And in fact, I remember being in the bar with those guys, those Italian pilots, the Freca Tricolori, man, they could party, right?
Yeah. What's interesting about a lot of the foreign teams, the Red Arrows in England, the Freca Tricolori, the Snowbirds, a lot of those teams, they do that. That's their career. They fly year after year after. Ours is a 2-year tour, which is astounds a lot of people. How could you learn that and do that and then leave? And we talk about why complacency and losing our zip with the public, which is our major goodwill role, right? Could happen anyway. So other flights, Sigonella flying in there, seeing Mount Etna, is it the volcano out there smoking away? That was kind of cool. Going to Italian restaurants while we're there. Oh, nothing to me. I love Italian food. I mean, it's the best. And then working with the Freca Tricolori, the guys are amazing. It was a great time. But I remember launching out of there to go to another show site, and I can't remember.
I think it was Romania or Bulgaria. Remember one of those?
Yeah, might have been Plovdiv. I think we came into Plovdiv. I don't know, Plovdiv, Bulgaria. But I think we had an equipment failure in one of the airplanes and had to come back.
Oh.
Or something wasn't ready at the receiving air base, but there was something we had to come back and spend an extra day in Sigonella. Do you remember that?
I actually don't remember that, boss. See, it's not just your memory. And guess what? That's a big deal. I mean, so okay.
here's something, another 30,000 foot view of what we did. So what we did in a month of flying in the US, we fly 4 air shows, right? 4 cities.
4 show sites. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
maybe 4 shows at each site,
yeah,
but just 4. Yeah.
4 show sites.
Yeah.
And on that around the world trip, we call it around the world. It was Russia and Eastern Europe and Europe. We flew 8 shows within that same month. So we were flying twice a week in different environments, totally different flight rules, different languages. I mean, it was so challenging. It was astounding. And that's what made that trip so beautiful. So we accomplished it successfully.
Yeah, I still reflect back to not just the flying, but like you said, the impact. It was, twice as much work, plus you're overseas, our supply chains, all the things that had to go in. I still have such respect for all our support officers, everybody who came together to make that trip successful, and the impact that it had on the world. Hey, as we wrap up here, I was thinking about just a couple questions. One is, what do you remember as you reflect back now? We're both sitting in our homes. By the way, I don't think we mentioned that this picture behind me is the slot pilot, and that's the boss. That's you right in front of me here. And we're doing a roll, right? That coming left, just like you did. So everybody, this is what it feels like if you're in the slot behind the boss. You got wingman 2 and 3 right next to the boss, and then 5 and 6 would be outboard next to the slot pilot. But this is what it feels like, and I just remember being in awe every day of the team and what we did. But what do you remember? What sticks with you now?
Oh man, 1,000 things. But I think jumping to the top was the incredible dedication of the entire team, all the enlisted folks, a couple civilian reps we had. Jack Fallon, who rest his soul, and then Dick Tushinsky, and he always two and pointed his shin, and then ski, Dick Tushinsky. We had so much fun with that, but all the troops and the families of the troops, right? The families were amazing. Watching the kids and the dogs, we let the dogs run out to the airplanes when we came home on Sunday afternoons, Sunday evenings. I mean, it was fabulous, the heartwarming thing. But probably, as you and I have both expressed, it was not dealing with, but actually being allowed to interact with the American public and the people you met out on the road, and the impact you had on people, and you could see it in their faces. I mean, you see the old veterans, some of them tears, they're so proud of what they've seen and what they had a chance to be a part of. And not just the Blues, but anything American. It was that was the best of it. Close second is the team and the camaraderie and the trust and how tight that was, and the unspoken commitment to each other that it just came without asking. So that's what I remember.
That was huge. And I was thinking, we're both so blessed and get the privilege now to share this experience, not just on a podcast, but, whether it's a keynote or workshops, we get to travel the world now. And it's amazing the impact that we're able to make, right, with others in the business world, but also people. What are some of the key points that you always want to connect back to, let's say, business or life? What are those that are important to you?
Well, building a culture based on trust and gratitude. How do you develop that? If it's not already there when you arrive in a corporation, let's say you're going to be a leader, a manager, C-suite guy or gal, how do you develop that, and how do you get inculcated into the culture? And do you want to try to change the culture at all? What's your goal there? That's challenging and that's hard. We want to try to do that. Now, go back to your question one more time. I kind of digressed.
Well, I was thinking about the links. There's so many powerful analogies.
Yeah.
By using our time, not just in the Blue Angels, but really specifically, that was a unique time frame, even more so than the military. Those analogies that transfer over into the business world.
Sure. Second chances. I talked about that earlier. Getting them and giving them. When you get a chance to be in a position to give them, critical. We used to be a 2 strikes and you're out type of culture. Right now, we've changed to allow a little more flexibility, and it's important. It creates loyalty. So second chances, I think, purpose larger than our own endeavors, our own ambitions, right, and our own wanting to shine our own light. It's not about us. It's about the organization, the enterprise, and how you create the best possible enterprise by doing your best. And certainly you're going to get recognized for that, but it's not about shouting out loud, I've got this secret. I can do this for the company, and I know how to do this. And I'm not going to tell anybody. No, it's about doing the best you can and realizing there's a purpose that company exists or that team exists. And that's what's preeminent in what you're going to do. So purpose larger than self. We talk about that. Hold what you got. Don't flinch.
Oh yeah.
Never more important than when you're doing a flyby of Disney World and you've been told, the fireworks are only going to go up to 800 feet and you're going to be at 1,500 feet and you're on time. As soon as you get by, the fireworks are going to go. And we brief all the risk mitigation factors, right, and possible risk. And we look at how we're going to handle that. And one of the briefings is, what if those fireworks come up higher? And so I'd always say, in any environment, especially like in turbulence when we're flying, hold what you got, don't flinch, because the flinching can create more damage than just absorbing what's coming at you. And we saw that
I remember that. I remember when you said that. We were flying, over Disney World, right? And you see these fireworks. I thought I was back in, the theater.
Guys. Yeah.
It was fine as a team, right? You just
and it didn't hurt the airplanes, but as a leader, had I flinched, there were broken airplanes all around me with whatever else. And I talk about that in the corporate world and the other team worlds. You get a phone call. Hey, sir, we got this going on, and I don't know how we're going to survive. That's an extreme. Yeah. You go, okay, let's just take a look. What's the immediate opportunity for getting hurt, right? And let's figure this out before we overreact.
Yeah.
So hold what you got. Don't flinch. Take those arrows that are coming at you, but figure out what it's really all about before you make a rash decision, an overreaction.
Yep.
That's one of those things. And so the second chance is the culture of excellence, the trust, purpose larger than self. What else? Second chance.
How about glad to be here, boss? Let's unpack that real quick. Because we talk about all those other elements. What is glad to be here? How does that fit into the way you see the world?
Yeah. Just knowing that you have so many blessings coming your way. A lot of times we're overcome with challenges, and challenges is a nice way of putting maybe disappointments or setbacks. We get kind of in the doldrums about that, but sometimes at the end of the day with my wife, Deborah, if we've had a rough day, I say, let's take an assessment here. What in our lives is really going well? And inevitably the scales go to what's good, right? And we can actually say, well, we're glad to be here. So that is kind of a broad brush of glad to be here. The other is with the blues, and with within any company, it's what you get to do, who you do it for. But right in there is who you get to work with and how you bond the team together and the trust that develops within your team. And that's as rich as the outcomes, really. And it's going to create awesome outcomes. So glad to be here. The sense of gratitude, you call it the attitude of gratitude, however you want to put a moniker on it. It's about that sense of gratitude for what you get to do. And glad to be here states it in no finer way.
Well, as I think back to not only a time on the team, but more importantly, since then, the message of glad to be here to me is the ethos, right? It's the essence. As we talked about operational excellence and all the things that go into there, trust, communication, teamwork, and some of the fun stories. I think that it was the glad to be here, that honor to be not only with the team and your teammates and to make an impact, like you've mentioned, but even since then, to see what we're able to do now and continue to inspire others, and that's the whole key. It's all about others, right? Not about us anymore. We don't need to fly anymore. But I think these stories are powerful. So I'd like to wrap with, I'll start my glad to be here statement for you. I'm so grateful, boss, for who you are. I'm just grateful that I got to serve under you. I'm so proud to be called your wingman, let alone your lead solo ops officer. It's more just to be with you. I'm also so proud that we continue to get to be together. And thank you for being on this podcast and sharing your wisdom, because I think that's what I heard today was deep wisdom. So, boss, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here with you. Gucci, over to you.
Yeah, like everything, it's experiential, right? You see things throughout your walks in life, and it creates this sense of goodness that you recognize out there, and that brings the glad to be here. But I'm glad to be here with you, Gooch, because you were the exemplar of energy and enthusiasm and positivity, and you still are. I mean, I'm glad we had a good relationship. Maybe I treated you okay back in the day, because now I work with you. I've done that for, I see on the LinkedIn, hey, congratulations on your 9 years or whatever. I mean, we've worked together a long time, and I've leaned on you a lot for guidance and expertise and what you do. I mean, you are preeminent in the world of speaking and bringing a message of hope and happiness, and taking your effort to the top of the pyramid. So you're the exemplar of that, and to get to work with you and to be here with you today and have each other backfill on the stories, right? It's just, I'm just glad to be here. It's just been a blast. And anything we do together is a hoot.
And that's, you just reminded me, is whenever we're together, it's way more powerful, right? I mean, we can go out there and do the messaging on our own, but when we're together, it's so better, so powerful. And we're gonna get a chance to be together in Pensacola with all our teammates. Let's leave everybody with one takeaway, one or two takeaways. And I like to leave it to you with, are there any sayings? Are there any, mantras? Are there any ways that things that you live your life by that you want to share? What are those cores for you?
Wow, there's a lot of those. I mean,
good. Let's do it.
Counting your blessings every day. When you don't carry a burden, a pack of burdens when you go to bed. Turn that over to somebody you trust. Could be a friend. It could be your savior or whatever.
Yeah.
Turn that over and release it, and go forward with confidence. The pandemic has tested us tremendously. A lot of folks have gotten depressed by it. No, there's so much goodness out there. This is a blip on the radar. It's going to go away, and we're back on track as, I call it finest country in the world. Others might not, but I see us, so mantras, glad to be here, gratitude for where you are in the world and what you get to do, and the fact that everything's coming together. We're looking up. So don't look back, just press on, is one of our famous carrier CEOs used to say. Press on, and exercise glad to be here, because if that spirit, if that shining that light of being glad to be here will have an effect on others.
That's what a way to wrap our podcast, boss. As always, it's a blessing. I want to count my blessings tonight. I will. Tomorrow morning, I'll think about this. We got to have you back on the debrief, because we didn't even talk about the power of the debrief. So we want to do that. But this was amazing. And I just want to say, thank you, boss. It's an honor to be in your presence.
My pleasure. Thanks, Gooch. Enjoyed it.
Bye, everybody. Glad to be here.